Hello and welcome to Conversations in Cleantech, the podcast that celebrates the clean tech industry and the people that power it, brought to you by Brightsmith. I'm your host, Jenny Gladman, and in this sixth season, we delve deeper into the world of clean tech startups and their founders, from inspiring stories and words of wisdom to the toughest challenges. You can expect to learn about how these pioneering startups and the founders at their helm are propelling us towards a cleaner, greener tomorrow. In addition, they'll be offering you timeless teachings to enlighten, engage, and inspire everyone, everywhere to live their purpose. So, today's guest has had an extremely interesting story. It's taken him from a childhood in Poland to completing his academic journey doing his PhD in the United States, where he then went on to have a very successful career and also to build a family. And he is now back in Europe, cruising around on bicycles with his 4 children. Where else but the Netherlands? In recent years, Piotrek has decided that it was time to find something more meaningful. Today, we'll find out what that is and how this led him to co-founding Hydrogen Prospect just under a year ago. So I am delighted to welcome co-founder and CEO of Hydrogen Prospect, Piotrek Lewandowski, to Conversations in Clean Tech. Welcome.
Hi, Jenny. Thank you for having me here. I'm very honored to join this conversation in Cleantech.
Well, welcome. And I'll hand it over to you to tell us a little bit more about yourself.
So I was born and raised in Poland, but I always had the curiosity to look outside, and I went through my education in Poland. I got my master's degree in physics, and then I had a really good opportunity to continue my studies in the States. So after graduating from Warsaw University of Technology, I went to get on my PhD at the University of Iowa in atmospheric physics, and that was really, this was fulfilling my childhood dreams of just understanding how the world works, really, right? Well, I was passionate about physics and then observing the world and trying to understand it. So during that time, both in my studies in Poland, I was focused on solid state physics, and there was we had a big program on material characterizations that was later could be used in hydrogen fuel cells. So there was that angle was really interesting for me. When I want to get my graduate degree, I focused on atmospheric physics, and then that degree really allowed me to understand the solar, I guess, energy. We were building solar spectrometers, and so I was both constructing the instrumentation equipment and also programming it and trying to find applications for how to understand the solar energy coming in. That was really interesting, except I graduated in the wrong time in 2009 during in the midst of the Great Recession. So that was not the best time. My original plan to actually be to stay with academia. I liked teaching, and it was very fulfilling. But unfortunately, the universities froze all the hiring, and so I started out looking outside in the industry. At one of the AGU, American Geophysical Union meetings in San Francisco, and actually in 2008, I went to career fair and I ran into one of the oil and gas companies. We had an interview. They were happy with what I had to offer and add to the value. And long story short, they hired me in 2010. I started my career over in Houston in oil and gas. I was in field operations in the upstream, so in oil and gas exploration, what you would call today maybe an oil finder, right? And the job was really great. I mean, got me travel all across the world. I mean, pretty much across 5 continents, and this was very hands-on work. I liked it a lot. The bit that never really, I mean, this was not really my large scheme plan, right, for my career. That was really interesting. The bit was the company did not want to necessarily switch to the more green energy, and that was a little bit frustrating at the beginning. But the work was still interesting, so we continue on. But at some point, the frustration grew to the point where, I was looking to sort of put my skills, my talent somewhere else, right? And this is where the idea of actually switching to hydrogen came about. I met actually within the company. I met another guy, my co-founder. We thought, okay, well, we have learned a great deal. We have a lot of skills. How we put them to better good? And he was a geologist by training, by education. I was a geophysicist, kind of on the job trained. So we thought, okay, let's look at hydrogen, but let's look at specifically at the storage of hydrogen, because we knew this is going to be a really key element that is not really addressed at the moment, and we had the right skills to address it. So we started a company in the Netherlands. We thought this is going to be a great, really good place to start this venture. Why Netherlands? Primarily because Netherlands has really all the ingredients to be a very successful at turning this ship around. Right? They had legacy fossil fuel industry, and they, as a nation, as a society, they decided they want to walk away from fossil fuels, and they collectively decided that this is not the right way of going forward. And this was one of the things that really impressed both me and my business partner. And we thought, okay, well, this is definitely, we don't have to explain why we're doing this in the Netherlands. It just sort of happens already here. So after the pandemic in 2022, so not even 9 months ago, we actually moved over here. I moved my family, and we have been on the ground in operation for about 9 months now. I so I am the only person on the ground in the Netherlands. I get to be the CEO of this venture, so a lot of the responsibilities fall on me to start this business up. And I mean, we are in the very early stage of startup, but we have the know-how, the knowledge, how to actually address the large scale storage, right? So yeah, so that's kind of in a nutshell. We are very small. We'd like to think of ourselves as talented, very focused, dedicated team that is willing to take a little bit of risk, a little bit more risk, right, and make this happen, right? In today's world, it's a bit of a scarce commodity, because money is everywhere, right? You there's a lot of money, but finding the right focused small team to pull this project is not as easy. So here we are. Our vision is carbon free future. We want to leave this place a better place for our kids. Yes, we have 4 kids, and then anytime I look at them, I feel, okay, I need to really focus my effort on leaving the planet a better place. And there's a larger context, the whole climate. The planet is warming at a just huge rates. It's completely unprecedented in the history and geologic history of the planet. The rate at which it's warming, right? I don't think we need to necessarily. I don't think there is any argument anymore of what's causing it. We're mining massive amounts of carbon out of the ground, and that carbon is unfortunately ending up in the atmosphere. That's an issue, right? So yeah, we are here to really address these key issues. So with our work, we're working on one of the elements of changing that fossil based industry, and we're trying to help with accelerating that whole large scale hydrogen storage business.
You covered at least 3 of my questions, so you're doing my job for me. But actually, you touched on something there, and I think so. Our listener base is really diverse, which is fantastic. We have a lot of people that do work in clean tech and clean energy and have a real grasp of what's going on in the hydrogen space, and we have others who are interested in moving into this space. So obviously, we touched on the fact that hydrogen storage is the name of the game in terms of what Hydrogen Prospect are going to achieve. But can you give our listeners a bit of context as to what does that actually mean? What is the purpose of hydrogen storage? Why is it so fundamental to the future of the hydrogen economy?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and we should probably even step back. Building completely new economy based on a new technology is not trivial, right? So We have a very established, mature fossil based in this economy, but we're now in parallel trying to build something completely new, right? So there are three key fundamental elements that we need for this switch to hydrogen work. It's the right technology, and in most parts, we actually have the right technology. Hydrogen has been around for decades. It's not new, but the green hydrogen or the low carbon hydrogen is really the new here. So the technology, there is policy also. So depending on the jurisdiction, the country, you're going to see all kinds of policies that either help deployment of hydrogen economy or slow it down. We are lucky that we are in the country that is very focused on helping accelerate that deployment. And the third component is market, right? And market, when I said market, it's the whole investment readiness, for banking, all that money that is, and also creating supply and demand, right? So those are the three key fundamental elements. And on top of these fundamentals, right, you can build your actual value chain, right? And value chain is really key. Four key elements: it's production of hydrogen, transportation of hydrogen, storage of hydrogen, and consumption of hydrogen, right? And in the production of hydrogen, you have this is probably the biggest piece of that value chain. You have not only the production of green hydrogen and electrolysis, but you also have to provide green electrons, right? So all the wind farms and solar farms, right? So all that embedded in the production. That's a massive element of the value chain. The transportation is already being developed. We are also lucky because in the Netherlands, some of the gas fields are being shut down, and they will be converted to transporting hydrogen. So you will have hydrogen pipelines that are kind of legacy natural gas pipelines. And then in storage, so yeah, so consumption side, all the use cases are also being worked on. There's a lot of advancement in that field. But storage of hydrogen, which is one of the four key elements of the value chain, is not addressed really to the extent that we should have addressed it. It also takes a very long time to actually build large scale hydrogen storage. The most economic way to store hydrogen is actually underground in salt caverns. So it's think of it as a cavity in salt deposits that have a domal shape. This is you essentially drill a well into these salt deposits, and you dissolve the salt inside on site essentially, and you create these elongated vertical cavities full with this salty water, right, brine. And then when you are ready to store hydrogen, you essentially pump hydrogen, compressed gas hydrogen into that cavity, and then you debrine it, and then you have yourself a storage, hydrogen storage. So that's how they are done. This is not a new technology. We have stored natural gas like that for quite a long time, since probably 60s, if not earlier. And the new bit here is that is actually storing hydrogen. Hydrogen is the smallest molecule. It's the first element in the periodic table. Because it's very small, it can escape. So you have to make sure that you are using the right ingredients in creating that storage, which is using the right metallurgy, the right metal for the casing, the right elastomerics. So all the rubbers, all the seals have to be hydrogen grade, and the right cement for all the cement work to kind of seal off that well. So that has been actually done already. There are at the moment four operating pure hydrogen, large scale hydrogen storage facilities in the world. One is in UK. That's an older generation, one of the first kinds. I believe it was constructed in the 70s. So that was the first one. And then there are three more hydrogen storage caverns in Texas, and they are the more modern version, newer generation. We have actually approached people who have designed, developed, and operated these caverns, and we have a lot of that knowledge from constructing and operating these caverns on our extended team. So it's really key to have that knowledge, not reinventing the wheel. We're bringing that knowledge with us to Europe, and that's how we don't have to necessarily go through all the piloting, proof of concepts. We already know that concept works. We know how to deploy it, so we can shortcut that time. It still takes a long time to develop a project like that, from between 5 and 7 years. So it's a long game. But so that's how we fit in this value chain. Also, one thing that I would like your listeners to understand is, for every 200 megawatt electrolyzer facility that we're going to put in, you probably need about one cavern, salt cavern, right? So this is, Europe has a very big ambitions to actually build vast electrolyzer network. So think of it, for 10 gigawatts of electrolyzers that, for example, Netherlands is planning alone. This amounts to about 40 to 50 caverns that the Netherlands are going to need in order to manage the assets optimally, right? So it comes down to really capex management. You have to have a place to store product that you are producing, in a similar way that the factory needs a warehouse, right, to store they don't always have demand at the same level as supply, right? So that's why you have to have a buffer where you can store your product. So and then going back to the existing three caverns in Texas, and these were built mainly for security of supply. So essentially, that these big industrial gas companies could provide hydrogen at a predictable, steady rate to their customers, right? The ones that will be built in Europe are built for a little bit slightly different reason. They are going to provide, essentially, yes, also security of supply, but to decarbonize the entire industry, right? Mainly heavy industry, utility scale power generation, steel factories, cement factories, fertilizer factories, right? So it's a much broader scale of deployment, versus in Texas. This was purely almost 100% for refining purposes, right?
I mean, you touched on a challenge there, and I think, to give our listeners some context, one of the things that you mentioned there, it's kind of 5 to 7 years to develop that market maturity. So you're essentially trying to predict the future a little bit. What does the hydrogen economy look like in 2030? And then how do we set the business up accordingly? That's a huge challenge to face. But can you walk us through a couple of the other challenges, and ones you may have faced already, but also ones that you're anticipating?
So timing of this is really important, right? Because you have to raise the entire value chain at the same time, right? So yes, you're gonna see production projects coming online, use cases, consumption projects, right? But you have to fit in at the right time. So you cannot overshoot with the storage capacity, right? You cannot undershoot. You have to have the just right amount. So you obviously you have to start somewhere, but at the current rate of the projects that are in the pipeline, the production projects, I think I would be probably okay to say that we're going to need about 15 to 20 caverns by 2030 in this northern Netherlands, kind of northern Germany region, based on the projects that are in the pipeline. Some of the projects have to still go through final investment decision point, but I would say the timing is going to be key. But I am pretty optimistic about just being at the right time with the service, right? At the end of the day, we're going to be providing service of storing molecules for companies that are either produce or consume hydrogen. I think we will, if anything else, the challenge will be that there will be not enough storage by 2030 and going forward as well. I think this will be a huge bottleneck. Now, of course, there is a small chance that it's still a risky business. If you talk to any financing institutions, they assess this to be a very high risk venture. But nevertheless, I mean, there is the first movers will have to bear a little bit more risk, but there is, with high risk, there's higher reward as well. You want to be the first in the market to provide that kind of service. You set pricing, call the commercial terms, benchmarking. There are also some advantages to being one of the first ones. So that's the timing. On the timing side, the timing risk. There's also there's policy risks, right? So the actual permitting licensing process is not exactly set in some of these countries yet. The policymakers are making these policies as we speak, and they will be slowly deployed. But we know that we are way behind on the kind of on the meeting the Paris Agreement curve. So that's going to be a challenge. They have to, particularly European Union, has to put some kind of emergency process for permitting these projects on the entire value chain, right? So from wind farms to electrolyzer facilities, storage facilities, all the way to use cases, right? So without that policy support, we're not going to be able to meet these ambitious emission reduction targets. So that's one of the challenges, right?
One of the things that I think is becoming increasingly evident is not just individuals supporting each other and being collaborative, but companies supporting each other and being collaborative, and now countries and whole regions of the world supporting each other. And you touched on kind of getting projects through FID. We're seeing more and more where one organization is helping its competitor with, ways and means of doing these things to make sure that more and more projects are reaching that stage, which means that the industry itself is advancing, and hopefully that becomes exponential in terms of the advancement, and then all of these different areas start to line up.
Yes, and they are at the moment they are kind of bound by geographic. They call them hydrogen hubs or hydrogen valleys, a little bit bigger. But with time going 35, 2035 and 2040, these hydrogen hubs will be connected to hydrogen valleys. These valleys will be interconnected, and at the end of the day, probably in 10 years times, you're gonna have a very healthy hydrogen, low carbon hydrogen market, and hydrogen will be a commodity, right? So a globally traded commodity, and that's what you want, to really emerge this, this market. That the lowest supplier will win. I mean, this is at the end of the day, that's what's gonna happen. So you're creating economy of scale at this point, like in 10 years times, when you connect it, for example, your suppliers in the Middle East, there will be a lot of hydrogen actually made in the Middle East. The irony is that this is actually a very prolific fossil fuel place, but they understand the principle of switching early and being the first mover, right? So you're going to have green ammonia coming to Europe from Saudi Arabia, from other countries in the Arabic Peninsula, and from North Africa as well. There is a lot of projects that will be supplying the green hydrogen to European markets, right? And the really great, and I wanted to touch on another point here. Really good thing about starting this up in Europe is that Europe really understands why this has to be a green hydrogen, right? Because Europe has been subjected to this to the energy crisis of the last year. So one unfortunate event can set off Europe on this really difficult path of volatility pricing, right, of energy prices. When you look at blue hydrogen, which is hydrogen made from, it's also considered low carbon hydrogen if you capture the CO2 and store it. Blue hydrogen is going to be subject to similar volatility going forward, right? So in the next, whenever if there's a next war, and or big oil and gas producers, or the OPEC cartel squeezes the pricing market for natural gas, we don't want Europe to see similar prices of blue hydrogen or hydrogen generally to go up. That's why I think it's really key to stay on track on in building that hydrogen economy on green hydrogen, not on blue hydrogen.
Now we're going to switch things up. So this season is all about founders, and as much as it's incredible to hear the story of the business and how you're going to tackle these challenges, I think something that I always like to focus on is the person as well, because sometimes the journey of being a founder, an entrepreneur, is a tough one, potentially a lonely one. You have your co-founder, so you at least in not going totally solo. But something that I find very interesting is how people stay motivated. How do you keep yourself on track? How do you keep that kind of positive mindset when you are tackling what essentially is huge challenges and ones that you can't always impact? And I think there's a big difference between challenges that you can personally impact and big challenges that are essentially out of your control, or at least in the main out of your control. So how do you stay positive? How do you keep positive mindset?
This is a really key question. I mean, what really keep me up at night, right, and really motivate me to get in the morning and go to work. I see this. I have a very personal story about this, right? I mean, we with our 4 kids, we want to contributing our talents and our skills towards better future for them, right? So when I think about this, yes, we did start the company. We are self-funded still. We are looking for that right partnership. Still, we have a lot of interest and a lot of companies that would like to participate in this. So we are still in the midst of securing that big investor or that financial support. But even though we are self-funded, and there are better days and worse days in terms of starting up this business. I still think about my kids at the end of the day when we read them to at the bedtime, and that's kind of my main driver, right? Like I want to make sure that I don't contribute to this climate disaster, right? So this is really the main driver. Obviously, I have a lot of passion for how to do it, right? And that drives me kind of on the more of a closer to the ground level. But the big picture is really that, right? And I don't really lose focus. I try to be really focused on that. We try to obviously bike everywhere, teach our kids how to live a low carbon life, right? So they understand the sensitivities around digging carbon out of the ground and emitting it as in terms of CO2 into the atmosphere. They understand that, and they are also connecting these dots as well with us, right, as they grow and explore their world themselves. So we want to be their role models, right, in that journey through life. Educate them, and that business is my second job. My first job is still a parent, right? So although that business is taking a lot of the time in my day, I'm doing it for them, right? So this is it's not the other way around, right? We're not here for the money. We obviously we are on a mission, right? So it's slightly different motivation, right? That's why we are also we're taking a little bit more time to partner up with the right investors that are on the same page, right? We don't want to be used as a publicity tool, right? To greenwash a company, right? Company's image. We want to partner up with company that is serious in decarbonizing economy. And going back to your question, I mean, yes, I mean, how do we stay positive? Yeah, it's just looking at our youngsters here every day, and then just not forgetting that we are, yeah, we committed to this mission, and we just have to carry on.
I think actually through the different questions that I've asked you, we've touched on the topic a couple of times of education, and I think this more so than lots of areas of energy is an area that people do need to be educated on. How do we do that? How do we explain what it is, why it's helpful, what the right and wrong ways to go about it are? Do you have any views on how we can educate people? I don't just mean children.
I mean, yeah, this whole public engagement, right, in the public discourse is very skewed. Unfortunately, most of the public discourse is happening in the fossil fuel kind of space, right? I don't think there's enough still. Like I'm thinking globally, we live in the Netherlands is a bit of a bubble, but when you can come out of the bubble and talk to the rest of the world, it is very much we need energy by all means, right? And that's kind of the slogan, right? Even if it's going to cause our planet to heat up, that's to some degree that's true, but we also are very smart. We have put people on the moon. We can figure out how to the way to tackle this as an engineering problem, right? We can educate people about there are other ways to actually produce and consume energy in more sustainable way. Actually, when you think about this, I don't know how many people know, but the cheapest form of energy you can actually electricity that you can produce today is actually solar. That is, like some of these solar projects, the long power purchase agreements that were bid in the Arabic Peninsula are at the level of like 1.5 cents a kilowatt hour, which is means this is this cheapest form of energy. So when you think about this, even from economic perspective, right, we can. It's just a matter of how to uh, deploy at scale and package this and really export it to all the countries that have this fortune to have a lot of sun or wind, right? But sun is actually so when you think about this, Africa is also it's a huge continent, obviously, with many countries, but a lot of these countries have fossil fuel, a lot of resources, but they also have a lot of other resources, right? Sun and wind, where you can quick make this transition and bring that the society up to kind of not out of poverty, but like bring them up in so they can live there, afford a lot of things that are common to us, right? So they can travel, they can have heating, they can heat their food, they can refrigerate their food. So these things can actually happen with renewables, right? And we, as much as effort we put into educating the society that we need energy, one step further is educating that we can actually do it in a sustainable way, and not necessarily again taking carbon out of the ground and then putting it in the cycle where it ends up in our atmosphere and warms up the planet even more. So yeah, that's the key. Where do we do it and how is another question. That takes an effort. Policies again, right? Working with governments. So it's not trivial. It's probably one of the more difficult thing to do. If you have an educated society, they will make smarter choices, right? They will realize that actually, yes, it's probably we should be investing in renewables and creating these low carbon economy for themselves and for their children. Fossil fuels are not, you take them out of the ground and there is no way to replace them, right? So but in terms of other energy like sun, I mean, obviously in a time scale that we are, it's considered renewable, right? So we always have endless amount of solar energy, and we can harness it.
And you touched on an interesting point there. I think, I'm not sure of the exact words that you used, but essentially, this is a global problem. And the last time we spoke, we talked about one of the big challenges we have globally is that some of the brightest talent and some of the smartest and most creative people in the world are still working on the oil and gas side, and for companies who aren't making the transition to green energy. Do you have, I guess, either any advice for them on what they could do in this side, or any suggestions on how we encourage more of that brilliant talent to make this step, and I guess to use some of your own words, the kind of more meaningful, more purposeful, more fulfilling career?
Yes, I see this. We've been on the ground for 9 months, and I've been to a lot of big renewable or green energy meetings and hydrogen meetings. There is definitely lack of talent, or not enough talent that is thrown at how to solve this and deploy these technologies at scale. I think this is a huge problem. I mean, there's we are in a talent war as we are already, and then on top of that, we are also trying to build this parallel economy, right, based on hydrogen. I see a lot of, when I was in oil and gas, I saw a lot of frustration from very smart and talented people that would make that jump over to renewables or the low carbon economy or an industry, but the pay is not the same, obviously, right? So they are, they are considered in this to be kind of enclosed in this golden cage, right, or having golden handcuffs, right? Because, but I took down these golden handcuffs and I made that jump. It's very fulfilling. It really gave me another purpose in life, and I'm chasing something that I would not otherwise be able to do in any other, or in the oil major, for example. I would my recommendation is to just ask yourself really whether the financial compensation is really the main purpose and meaning of your life, right? Perhaps it's not. Maybe money isn't everything. I am doing, for the first time in a very long time, I'm actually doing something that I really love, and I wake up and very energized in the morning, and I go to work trying to make the change. No money in the world would be able to really like give you that kind of sense of purpose, right? So I think there is that's gonna have to be another discussion, right? How we bring the talent over, make a case, and what this conversation in Cleantech is one of the platforms that where you can make an example and show somebody that you can actually have a fulfilling and very happy career that doesn't have to be in oil and gas. You can pivot your career to something else successfully, right? And I don't look back. I mean, it's really had been great.
You got me sold.
Yeah, yeah. If you're on the verge, you're thinking, you already made that decision. You're just delaying and you're wasting your time. That would be my recommendations for people who are kind of on the verge of pivoting their career or just not being happy, frustrated with the greenwashing. Right? They want to do something really substantial. Just close your eyes and do it, and then things will fall into place in the right way.
And just to echo that, I think as someone that sits in that talent space day in, day out, I'm very confident in saying whatever you do in the oil and gas space, or even looking at kind of other industries, automotive, kind of wider industrial manufacturing, your skills will be transferable and there is a space for you. And a career with purpose that you can feel proud of what you do is something that I agree with you. You know, you can't replace that with finance. I do also understand that people have to live and people have bills, but if you get to a point that you can have some flexibility in what that looks like in order to have a greater purpose in life, I certainly recommend.
Yes, no, thank you. I echo that too.
Well, Piotrek, that was a really insightful conversation. I thank you for educating the listeners on hydrogen storage, but also for telling your own story and for being someone that can juggle starting up a new business, moving continents, and looking after 4 children is no mean feat.
Yeah, I certainly appreciate your invitation, and really, I had a lot of fun having chat with you and being on your podcast. So thank you for that.
Likewise, thanks for joining me.
Yes, bye.